Good morning. Picking up my super healthy McDonald's breakfast. I just felt like it. I've actually lost some weight though in the last few days. So that's a good thing.
I'll replay it.
Hold on.
Again,
There we go. It's been a really interesting 24 hours. First of all, again, I don't know why this sticks in my craw. When somebody who is on the benefiting safe side of this whole thing sees me expressing fear, deep concern, grief, whatever it is, it's not like faith and all the good things. And they tell me, and I gotta believe, they're telling me this from and I believe it. I believe they're telling me this from a place of like wanting to help me feel better. But when you're sitting on the side of like the winning side, that's for lack of a better word, you're sitting on the side that for so many different reasons you're not looking down the barrel of a gun. In fact, you don't even think that there is a gun. You haven't seen a gun. I've been seeing it for what has it been, 10 years now? 8 years? 9 years? 9 years? 10 years? Because the campaigning started like 10 years ago. And somebody tells me from that place, you shouldn't be living in fear. You need to have faith and yada, yada, yada. Logically, absolutely, that is where I want to get back to. But for me, it is definitely a process. I talked to a friend of mine this morning. I just love her and her husband, and I just love that we talked about so many real things, and spirit, and the process, and how I get through this, what I'm doing, what she's doing, how many similarities there are, and coming together. And I know that I will do myself no favors at this time to try to skip past the messy parts, to try and skip past the parts that make other people maybe feel uncomfortable, or make them feel like, oh, well, you shouldn't feel that way because, if you had more faith, you wouldn't have fear, and yada, yada, yada. Well, the reality is that I do. I think it's a not justifiable, but I think it's an appropriate reaction for somebody like me to feel what I'm feeling in a situation like this. So until we're dealt the same hand, well, you're holding the winning hand and I'm holding the losing hand, it seems like right now. You with the winning hand telling me you should feel this way and you should feel that way, and you shouldn't feel this way and you shouldn't feel that way about it. That's not helpful. It's not helpful right now. The part I can take away from that is knowing that because you're my friend, that you're saying it from a place of trying to make it better, and that I will take with me. But the rest of it feels a little slappy in the facey. You know what I mean? And I know you don't mean it like that, but it does hit that way in a way, because it's like, that's super easy for you to say. sitting where you're sitting, looking the way you look. Could you just acknowledge that our experiences are going to be very different about this, and I'm going to have to get through this the way I do. So now 3 days into it, I'm starting to see some light as far as like my reconnection with my higher power. I have been on some level kind of looking at them a little sideways, like, you know, really, God? But I know that the best way through this is to be really honest about where I'm at, so that way me and God can grapple with this together right where I'm at, and from an honest place. So when I get to a better place, it's going to be honestly better. But we don't have a lot of time. Like, I don't have like years to work through this. You know, the clock is ticking, and and me and my friend were talking about that today. Like, when we were talking, it reminded me of when I was really struggling with character defects, and that was the thing. I had been struggling with them. Like, I'm gonna, you know, because I'm not like I don't know. I control my outward emotions a lot. It's just part of, I think it's part of being native, you know, it's part of being who I am, part of how I was raised, you know, a lot of it. So just, you know, kind of reserved in that way. And so I am reserved in a lot of ways. And so then, you know, when it comes to character defects, you know, I don't like it to get messy. I don't like my, you know, bad behavior to be out there out loud, you know, like I can get away from that. Like, I can't get away from that. But I sure as hell in my brain tried and struggled and wrestled with it and tried to control them and be a certain way and make myself, and I was getting angrier and angrier and more frustrated and more frustrated. It was probably a good year of that. And then one day I realized that step didn't tell me to do that. That wasn't my job. I was trying to do my job and God's job. No wonder I was frustrated. No wonder I was angry. And, you know, I finally hit the wall. That was what happened. And I realized I can't do this anymore. I just can't live with myself anymore. And when I finally got to that point of like surrender, that was when God was like, okay, now can I have my job back? Because you've been trying to do my job. And I feel like that's where I'm at right now. And I can logically understand that, but my brain is spinning and it's trying to think of all of the solutions and how, you know, because there's a lot to think about, and everywhere I turn, it's like, holy shit and what, you know, and this, I know this is part of, you know, and I can see the things that I'm hearing, and I'm like, it actually is what I think it is. And so and then my brain wants to take everything and make it its job to figure out, and there's no possible way for me to figure it all out. And that was an awakening I had this morning on the phone with my friend. I was like, oh, this is like that time, except I don't have a year to sit around and play around with this. Like, but at the same time, I cannot force it, but I also can't, I don't have the luxury right now of prolonging it. So the best thing I can do is be in fear for a moment, if that's what I need to be in order to get back to faith. I don't know about you, but I know for me, those things are a journey. I am not that spiritual. Maybe some people are. Maybe as soon as they feel fear, they're like, oh, fear, I am, boom, faith, right away. That's not okay. I don't, you know, fear means I'm not having faith. And if I'm not having faith, well, then I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. So I'm not that person. This is a big deal. And I have to, if I'm going to get through to the point that I need to be in order to be there for my family, and to have clear thinking and sanity and clarity. My friend mentioned that word today, clarity. If I'm going to have that for real, because the stakes are too high right now, I can't afford not to have those things, but I have to have them for real. And if I'm going to have them for real, that means that I have to like feel what I'm feeling for real. So that way me and God can get through that for real, wherever it's at. I don't think that God is scared of me not having perfect faith through this right now. I don't think so. We've been here before. And not once have I felt like my higher power has been like, oh shit, those feelings are too big for me. You're just not, you're not feeling enough faith. So I gotta go because, you dropped the ball. And so I'm just, good luck. I haven't felt like that. And although on some levels, and there's a lot of layers to this, that, I am kind of looking sideways at God and going, what the hell? I'm just accepting that that's part of this process. And if I'm going to get to where I need to be 100% for my family and the people in my life and the people that God will bring into my life as we go through this together, I need to do this work for real. I need to show up like what Sky sent the other day, I need to show up for the grief. I need to show up for the lack of faith. I need to show up for myself, however that looks. And when people talk about radical self-acceptance, this is for me, this is it. Because I would like it to look better. I would like to be able to come to friends and be like, oh yeah, I'm just, my ego would like that. That's what it is. My ego would like me to be able to say, oh, I'm fine. I'm not worried about a thing. God's in control, and I'm just, I'm just along for the ride and I'm good. I'm not feeling not even a twinge of negative thinking or fear or concern or anything except just pure unadulterated happy faith. My ego would love that, but I can't, again, I feel like the stakes are too high for me to dilly-dally with those things right now. I gotta get into real solution and a real place of connection with my higher power. And we've got some working out to do. We definitely do. Because for me, and for those of you, if you're watching or you're listening or you listen to this later on and you're looking at me going, oh my God, so dramatic. What's the big deal? There's not, and please don't tell me there's no big deals, because there are big deals. At least for me in my life with this does count to me as a big deal. But if I'm going to, I don't even know what I was saying, but if you're looking at this thinking, then that's fine. I don't care. I know that it's important. I know how much it means to me when I'm going through it and I hear somebody else that has gone through it or is going through it too. But our goal is to get to the other side and to not lose ourselves, our connection to our higher power in the process, even though it seems like during the process all of those things are happening. But for me, the faith comes in. Faith doesn't look like not feeling fear all the time. Faith for me looks like having faith that I'm going to find my way through it, and that even though I don't feel all those feel-good feelings now, that the end result is going to look a lot more like somebody who feels like it's going to be okay. But I'm just not feeling that all the time right now. What the faith is it's hope. I guess I still have hope. I have hope that that hope is also on the table, that it's not lost. That's pretty much all I have right now. And I have that because of the things that are happening, the connections that I've had with people. There's been 3 phone calls that I've had in the last couple of days that have transcended all of this stuff, these power plays and the things that people are hung up on that are causing all this horrible division and above that, there's been these 3 phone calls that have that brought something to the table that transcended all of that, and I couldn't deny it. Like, I couldn't deny it. So that tells me that that stuff is still happening in the unseen world. It's still alive. It's still there. That human beings can still connect on those levels, and that's real. So I'd rather have that and be in a difficult place with myself, my fellow man, my higher power, and be working through it, but then have those moments of like realizing, because of the we of this whole thing, people reaching across the aisle, and they tell you something, tell me something, and I can see what's really real. And what's really real is how we help each other. What's really real is love. What's really real is identification with each other. The connection that we get if we stop making the stuff that's not important the most important stuff. I have no control over what other people do about that. I wish I did. I wish I could make everybody's, like, stop focusing on color and that right now. I don't know if you heard anything that said it was reconnecting. Anyway, so those things have been like little cracks in the clouds where God's like, this, just because the sun's behind the clouds does not mean the sun is gone. And so, we just keep going on, show up for work, do the next right thing, all the things that recovery's taught me. It doesn't change. My friend was saying this morning, there's a little analogy or, thing that she said, and it's like, those things, life is going on, and it comes back to, for me, to where I was at yesterday. It's like, well, it's gonna keep going on. It's gonna keep, time isn't gonna stop because Nadine's confused. Time is gonna march on. How am I going to meet where I position myself? I can't. But the outside circumstances are going to be what they're going to be, and I have to figure out how I'm going to be in it, and what solutions I'm going to get into. And yeah, and so that doesn't mean, also, though, don't mistake that for like, that means that, acceptance, love, all of that are absolute. Years ago, when this stuff was first happening, years ago, like 10 years, when the campaigning was started, and I was listening to him, I'm like, this is dangerous stuff. And I was talking to a friend of mine, a friend that was a dear friend of mine, and he was on the other side of the aisle, and I'm like, this looks very bad. If this keeps going, it's gonna end up right where we're at right now. And this was like 10 years ago. And he's like, well, your head down and it'll all be fine. And I was like, I remember at that point, I'm like, I don't want to keep my head down. That's not who I am. Why should I keep my head down? So I don't think the acceptance and surrender and all of that means that. At least not for me. I mean, there are times where it's wise to do that, but I don't think I need to live my life like, because it's the only way I get unstuck. And I could really fall into a hole of me, and my feelings, and all about me.